Welcome back to Misfits and Martyrs. My name is Veritas, and this evening we're going to talk a little bit about courage for the Lord. Anyone who's even vaguely familiar with the story of St. Patrick, he was kidnapped, and at some point maybe we'll do a longer episode on him, but he was kidnapped from Ireland, from Gaul and brought back to Ireland, where he was kept as a slave. After he finally escaped, he was never released, he escaped. He had the courage to go back to Ireland and preach among the people there. And I think to any of us who want to engage anybody about the faith in any capacity, and hopefully you want to, if you don't want to, learn your faith well enough and you will want to engage others about the faith, he didn't worry about anything. Well, he worried about it, but he prayed against it and just continued on. The extreme act of courage was, and what they usually don't mention in most of the stories of the life of St. Patrick, is that he actually was going to mission territory. And the reason the church opposed him, because that's something that was recently mentioned in one documentary I watched, where they said it was a Protestant Christian station, and they said his church didn't want him to go back. Not that it was the Catholic Church, because this was in the 400s. There was no other church. It was only the church. But the reason that they didn't want him to go back, nobody ever mentions, I think a lot of people don't realize this obscure fact, was that they had already sent someone as a missionary to Ireland, and they'd been killed. So it wasn't that the Catholic Church, had never sent anyone there. There had never been a successful missionary to Ireland, and it was basically looking at him and, he's like, I want to go back there and preach. And it's just, you're going to die. Like, this is a death mission. And he had the courage to go out there and do it. And I think sometimes about how gentle and soft our culture is. And really, when you think about it, our culture is so gentle and soft that we don't want to talk about anything. Well, as long as I play nice and don't say anything that's going to upset anybody. Well, here's the thing. You opened your mouth, and therefore someone's going to be offended. So it's one of those things to realize, if you have the courage of your conviction, and you've truly studied, hopefully you've studied, don't just, no TikTok theology. If I ever release videos on TikTok, it's going to be really funny, because I tell people that all the time. But really know what you're talking about. Know the history, know the context. If you're going to spout a scripture, know the verse that comes before and after it, and how it fits in, and who it was intended for, and those things, because that will make all the difference. But have the courage to speak. Somebody's not going to like what you have to say. They're just not. I promise. Somebody will not like what you have to say. It gets to a point where you have to not care about that, and you just have to get out there and say what must be said. In truth, in charity, to the best of your ability, and somebody's probably still going to be offended. In this day and age, I really wonder about the previous saints like St. Patrick. St. Patrick went out there and he didn't mince words. If you ever read the Confessions of St. Patrick, he really did not mince words. I don't think he minced words with pretty much anybody, given the way that he was willing to speak to his superiors and things like that. Not in an insubordinate way, but in a very, very stark, blunt, real way. Somebody's going to have something to say about anything you say. Nothing you say is going to be right with 100% of your audience. It is just one of those things where you have to decide, I'm doing the best that I can in charity. I'm doing the best I can to tell the truth. I've done my research. Please do research. Again, I know I mentioned that. And then get out there. And you know what? Have the humility to realize somebody is going to use you in some kind of a wrong way. They're going to challenge you in a negative sense, not just a challenging, but they're going to treat you like trash. It's going to happen. There's going to be haters. As the old adage goes, haters going to hate. There's a lot of truth to that. But you know what? You're going to reach somebody. And that's the biggest thing. Don't be afraid to share Christ. Don't be afraid to share the truth of the church. And this especially goes out to some of my friends who've said, like, I want to talk to people, but I can't. Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can. Pray and ask for courage, for fortitude. Ask to really open up those gifts that were given to you at confirmation. If you're not confirmed, ask only for God's grace and be like, you know what, Lord, I want to be confirmed and I haven't been yet. Sometimes that can be a long journey, but ask for His grace to do His work. God bless you all.